Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 4 of Pumpin Iron, the review series for the classic muscle cars of Gran Turismo 6. Now this car is kind of borderline as to whether or not it should be eligible for this series, because technically, although it's a 66 Oldsmobile Toronado, it's very heavily modified. The original car was front-wheel drive, whereas this is rear-wheel drive. It has a new engine, it's heavily modified. So is it really still a classic? Well, perhaps it could be argued that it's not, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. However, the spirit and heart of this car is a classic Toronado. So, for the sake of the series, I will be including it. Now, this is of course the Jay Leno version of the Oldsmobile Toronado. It's powered by a turbocharged 427 cubic inch or 7 litre V8. It's the biggest muscle car in the game in terms of sheer overall size. It's over 18 feet long, getting on for 7 feet wide, but surprisingly does not actually weigh as much as you might think. With the full weight loss package, it actually weighs a surprisingly reasonable 1,489 kilos, so under 1.5 tons, which is not that much heavier than the Trans-Cam Mustang that we reviewed earlier in this series. So that's a pretty good start. The car is better than you'd think. Now, the main selling point, of course, of the Toronado, which is incidentally the most expensive muscle car in the game by far at 1 million credits, is the power. That's what people know this car for. That's why people want the car. The sheer power and torque and speed that this car offers. Now, you cannot upgrade the power as such, but you can give it an oil change, and with said oil change it produces 1,124 brake horsepower, which is by far the most powerful classic muscle car on Gran Turismo 6. It also produces a colossal 1,050 pound-feet of torque, which again is among the highest in the game. Combine that with its surprisingly reasonable weight, and it has a pretty decent power-to-weight ratio of 650 horsepower per tonne. However, although that is pretty good, that's the same power-to-weight ratio as the Pontiac Tempest GTO that we reviewed last time. And that car has significantly less power and costs just over 50,000 credits instead of 1 million. So, not so good from that point of view as a track machine. However, of course, people do not buy it mainly as a track machine, they buy it essentially to be a dragster. So what does it offer in a straight line? Well, as you'd expect, it is overwhelmingly fast. With that much power and torque, it could not be anything but fast. And compared to the other classics, in a straight line, it will beat all of them. However, it's slower in a straight line than a fully tuned 2013 Mustang. And although the Mustang is not going to be in this series because it's not a classic model, that's quite surprising to most people, to think that such really well-known high-performance car as this in the world of Gran Turismo could be beaten by a car which pretty much everybody owns, the GT500 Mustang. And I'm not just saying that theoretically, I've actually done it. And even I was surprised when I beat the Toronado with the GT500 Mustang. So in terms of sheer performance, yes, against the other classics, it does have a significant advantage. But with a top speed of around 265 without NOS, that's not that far ahead of some of the other muscle cars. Even the Trans-Cam Mustang could do 260, and that has no way near the power or torque of this car. And there are other muscle cars as well, with not far off the kind of top-end performance of this. The Plymouth Cuda as well has a very similar top speed. And although, yes, the acceleration is immensely fast, especially mid-range, again, there are very few tracks that you can actually utilise that advantage, apart from perhaps here at Daytona, maybe the Indy road course, obviously Special Stage Route X. But apart from Special Stage Route X, this car's advantage isn't that big, especially considering how much you're paying out for that advantage. It's only a matter of seconds at the most quicker than the other muscle cars in the game on most tracks, and in many cases it's slower than other muscle cars. Overall, cars like the Pontiac Tempest or the 440 Charger are actually better track machines than this car. Now, as we said, people don't really buy this car to be a track machine, but this series is comparing muscle cars in every way, not just their straight line performance. And so I have to tell you guys what it's like as a track car, and it's just not that good. No, it's not bad, but it's nowhere near the best. On certain tracks it may be, but its range of effectiveness is so much more restricted than most, if not all, of the other muscle cars. Now, for 1 million credits, that may be a bit disappointing to hear, but that's just the way it is. It's definitely not a bad car, but it's nowhere near as dominating as you would expect it to be, and it's nowhere near as dominating as people speak about it being. This car is so overhyped by most players, most of the time by players who don't even own the car. They just assume that it's good, even though they've never driven it. Now, as I said, it's certainly not a bad car. It's one of the most powerful cars in the game. But just bear in mind that for the money, it's not as conquering as you'd expect. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.